Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and this is from Simon McLaughlin from Uphold. He says, you'll see Uphold listed among the biggest XRP holders, but those assets belong to our customers, not us. For people remember who stood strong in difficult times, and it shows here Ripple's holdings, BitHum, the biggest holders are BitHum, Binance, Uphold, Upbit, Bitbank, CoinCheck. There's one that's not showing on the list, but I will bet you, dimes to donuts, that ITrust Capital, my partner, is much higher on the list than people think. But I don't have to just guess. This is the iTrust Capital CEO. Now keep in mind, this is from September 2023.
We are roughly, I would say right now, about 9.5% of our total assets. And we are what looks to be top 50 wallet holder for XRP at iTrust Capital.
I believe that it's probably pretty higher up on that top 50 now. And the reason, there's several reasons for it. First one is that people are getting free institutional custody. The second one is that they're able to get they're able to open a crypto IRA, which is what I did back in 2018-19, and I've got my XRP in IRAs, but then they opened up the premium custody accounts in the last year or so, and now you can send your XRP into the premium custody account, and in both of these type of accounts you get that free institutional grade custody, and then of course in the IRAs you get the tax benefits. So for those of you that don't know, if you've been laid off or quit your job or retired, you can actually roll over your 401k into an iTrust Capital IRA in part or in full. So you could call them about that. But I sleep so well at night. I've never worried about my IRA accounts. I've had those since 2018-19. I've never really been concerned about my XRP in those accounts. And now with my premium custody account, I sleep just fine. Every time you see these tweets about hacks and all, I'm not worried about it. Doesn't affect me. You can go to itrustcapital.com/XRP Army if you would like to open an account with iTrust Capital. Easy as pie. The market pulled back a little bit, but now it's on its way back up. Let's hit the refresh button. We're back up to 4 trillion now. XRP is trying to get back on up to $3. The anticipation is real because we have a big week ahead. Wednesday, the Fed rate decision, Powell press conference, FOMC projections. Thursday, B of E rate decision. Friday, Bank of Japan rate decision. Massive macro weekend coming. And then here's a guy on CNBC commenting on this.
Former Fed Vice Chairman, also a CNBC contributor. And Roger, good morning. Let's talk, first of all, are you in the 25 basis points camp or the 50 basis points camp? Because I think everybody's pretty convinced the Fed will cut this week.
I think the data has come in, reinforcing the notion of labor market weakness. But we're also seeing some spillover into higher prices, which I think suggests 25 is a better choice than 50.
So 25, former Fed.
Okay, pretty much everybody is pretty convinced it's happening this week. Now, ever since we put out the clip of Caitlin Long bashing Ripple, she doesn't say Ripple anymore, but this woman is seething about the idea of Ripple getting a Fed master account when she was trying to get a Fed master account, I guess, first before anybody, and she is seething. Folks, the reason that I got into Ripple in the first place is because I'm old enough to know. The reason I started covering this, because I'm old enough to know that life is more about connections than anything. And these guys were connected from the very beginning and have been working with, and laying the groundwork, railroad tracks, plumbing, whatever you want to call it, for all these years with banks and all this, plans within plans. And this reminds me of like a child that's just figuring out that connections matter. And it also reminds me of this clip, which I'll remind you of after we play it, of Joseph Lubin.
Do you foresee that stablecoin issuers are going to get access to Fed reserve and be treated like banks? That's another lingering question that we don't have answers to. We know the Treasury is hosting a roundtable coming up soon. We know that they've opened up some comment, but there's still a lot of unanswered questions. Do you foresee that fully approved stablecoin issuers are going to be introduced into the Fed reserve system similar to banks? Will there be that kind of parity?
No.
Expand.
Because stablecoin issuers are not legally depository institutions. There's been a rush to get trust company charters, and there have been several now who have applied for Fed master accounts, and the Fed master account system, you have to legally be a depository institution in order to use the payment system. Let's step back. What is a depository institution? It is a financial institution that is legally authorized to accept a US dollar deposit. A trust company by law is prohibited from accepting a US dollar deposit. To be able to use FedWire and ACH, the Fed has taken the position that you have to be a depository institution. So a trust company may be able to use trust services like storing T-bills in a Fed master account. There's precedent for that, although not clear that that's even legal. But the Fed has historically given some trust companies access to Fed master accounts, however, not for moving money in the payment system. What's the value of moving money in the payment system? It's the par guarantee. This is why ultimately we saw so early that you have to be a depository institution, and that the stablecoin market, I firmly believe, will go entirely to the banks. That doesn't mean that crypto companies won't themselves become banks, but right now there are exactly 3 of us that are banks, and we're all Wyoming special purpose depository institutions because by law we are authorized to accept US dollar deposits. The Nebraska DADI charter is not legally a depository institution, therefore not eligible. All these trust companies, including OCC trust companies, also not eligible to get access to the payment system for moving US dollar deposits. That is where the distinction is, and I have had very extensive conversations with the actual...
Listen to this part. She's had very extensive conversations. And remember, these Bitcoin maxis and the Ethereum people for the last decade, the way they've painted things is it's always, if Ripple's behind the scenes lobbying anyone, that's evil and they're up to no good. But if the Bitcoin maxis are doing it, if the Ethereum people are doing it, oh, that's all fine. That's a big part of what we've been exposing for the last 5 years, is the hypocrisy of all of this. And so now she's telling you, well, I've talked to the people behind the scenes, and make no mistake, she's tight with Senator Loomis, who will not meet with Brad Garlinghouse. Make no mistake, they're plotting and planning behind the scenes. The same, kind of the same way Joseph Lubin did to get his Ethereum free pass. But ultimately, the truth comes out of things.
Decision makers, and I believe firmly that is ultimately where it will come down. So these trust companies stops that several crypto companies are in the process of making right now are intermediary stops. That's great. That gives companies the ability to do business nationwide. If they have not been able to do so, they don't have to do the 50 state money transmitter licenses. So there are benefits to getting, for example, an OCC trust company charter, but getting access to FedWire and ACH at the Fed, you've got to legally be a depository institution. And I firmly do believe, with very good, very recent conversations with decision makers, that the Fed is not going to change that.
Remember this clip? I won't play the clip, but I'll tell you the gist of it. This is right after Joseph Lubin worked out his Ethereum free pass. And then at the end, he says, yeah, and they didn't say the same thing about XRP as far as decentralization goes. And then he says, and we think that the SEC's made all of the comments they're going to make on this. Well, here's to you, Caitlin Long. How'd that work out for old Lubin? All right. I saw this tweet today. Look at this. This is from like some discovery, I think, when Bitfinex was, I can't remember if they were sued or in a lawsuit or whatever. Look at this part, because this is why Tether was set up from the beginning, folks. Among other things, when the chief financial officer of both Tether and Bitfinex asked the anonymous trader, "Can you please push the Bitcoin price above 10K again?" "Sure, no problem. Just issue me some USDT." That's what it's all been about. That's why they know that they can't have an audit of all that was done because they know all the shady stuff that was done. That's why they created USAT in the US, because they have to have a clean slate. They're going to use USAT to do the same thing, to pump the Bitcoin price. The objective is to pay off the US debt. That's what this game is. But make no mistake, the RLUSDs of the world, they have their own playbook. For sure. Now, I think this is true. The Rex Osprey Spot ETF ticker, it's XRPR. And they will launch the first spot XRP ETF in the USA in 4 days from now, September 18th. So I don't know if this is true, but this is what it says. We shall see. Now, the learning curve for the Bitcoin maxis is, I guess, over a decade, but figure it out they will. They're starting to. Look at the shock on this guy's face when this guy says this.
Why I personally believe that XRP will explode.
Huh?
The prices are going to skyrocket here at some point. And I'm going to tell you why. Points out of here. The first one is data shows more than 80% of XRP's supply is in wallets that have not moved for over a year. So 80% of its supply is in wallets that have not moved for over a year. That indicates a very strong holding conviction. So those that own XRP believe in it.
You know what? I may have to cut that clip out. I didn't realize they had music over the top of it. That might be a copyright issue. So let's move along. Altcoins versus Bitcoin, the third strike. 2017 disbelief before liftoff. 2021, same setup, same outcome. 2025, the pattern repeats. Wealth is built where disbelief peaks. Ignore it now and you'll FOMO when the alts go parabolic. I agree. I'm not going to play this. This is, he looks into the Robbie Mitchnick, you know, the head of digital assets at BlackRock, same guy that did the valuation on XRP back in 2018 with Susan Athey, Ripple board member. You know, same guy that never talks about how he worked at Ripple. Okay, I wanted to show you this. This is from the Baron of Beach Street. You remember him. He has the greatest mullet in all of the XRP community. He is known as the official legend of the Digital Asset Investor channel. And the dude's sharp. And he did an entire, you remember we've talked about Kendra Hill from Steemit, who posted about XRP a long time ago, made a lot of interesting comments. He believes that Ryan Fugger, who created Ripple, it was Ripple Pay at the time, back in 2004, I believe. And then Ripple, I think the way it happened is supposedly Ripple came in and bought it. But the most interesting point is that Ripple existed before Bitcoin, folks. Okay? So he thinks that Kendra Hill is Ryan Fugger. And if you look down here, 2004, he launches Ripple Pay. 2006 is where this gets interesting. Ryan Fugger appears on the New World Order podcast, Ripple Pay with Ryan Fugger, stating, "We're like time travelers, building new economies. People who see beyond the current banking silos create trust networks that loop back on themselves like Mobius strip of credit." And then you go down here, it says the mysterious Kendra Hill joins Steemit, posting 800 times. And she says, when her post, the currency of time travelers. XRP is the currency of time travelers, building new economies, looping credit just like like a Mobius strip. Now, I'm not sure it's the same one, but I think I've found the clip that he says here that the podcast vanished by 2008. I don't know if I found the same podcast, but I thought it would be interesting to play for some of you in the group. A podcast from, I think, he says it's from 2000, vanishes by 2008. 2006, the podcast I found is from 2006. Maybe it's the same one, maybe it's different. I'm going to play some of it for you in the group. so you can hear the guy that was Ripple before it was Ripple. Okay? So if you want to come in the group and listen to some of it, it's DAIXRP.com to join the Patreon. If you'd rather join through YouTube, click join below any of these YouTube videos, or you can hit subscribe through X. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family. Away we go.